Her Excellency Mrs. Ajaisa Tunjie Saidi, Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs of Gambia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Madam President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. While I bring you greetings and best wishes from His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. AJJ Jammeh, I hereby deliver this statement on his behalf, of course on the occasion of the 15th session of the Conference of Parties, as well as the 5th Conference of Parties, serving as the meeting of parties to the Kyoto Protocol. Madam President, please allow me to join my colleagues to congratulate you first and foremost on your election as our chairperson. My delegation and I thank the royal family, the government, as well as the people of Denmark, and the UNFCCC Secretariat as well, for the warm hospitality and excellent facilities that have been placed at our disposal since our arrival in this beautiful city of Copenhagen. The Gambia, at this point, also associates itself with the negotiated agreements and positions of the Africa Group, the least developed country group, as well as the G77 and China. Madam President, we would all agree that the road, that is the Bali Roadmap, marked a breakthrough in international climate change policy and discourse by highlighting a shared understanding for the necessity of common efforts, both by developed as well as developing countries alike, towards legally binding, ratifiable outcomes in Copenhagen. Contrary to the view, however, by some parties and quarters that treat the Kyoto Protocol, for example, as an inevitable failure in combating climate change, and suggesting, of course, to replace it as well with a single agreement, the Gambia, on the contrary, believes in the two-track process that was agreed in Bali as a precondition for a sustainable and agreed outcome of Copenhagen. Madam President, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we reaffirm our firm support for a review of further commitment of our developed country partners under the Kyoto Protocol to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions from 1990 levels by at least 45% by 2020, and indeed at least also by 95% by 2050. This, in our view, means a limit in global temperatures, at least its increase, a limit to the increase to at least 1.5 degrees Celsius, and greenhouse gas concentrations as well, on the other hand, to below 350 parts per million. Madam President, we firmly believe in a legally binding agreement of the Bali Action Plan, of course, based on 4 issues, one being the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, as has been highlighted by previous speakers, and respective capabilities to be implemented in the spirit of global cooperation and partnership. Secondly, also accord priority to the special situation and needs of developing countries like ours, particularly the least developed countries, the small island developing states, and countries in Africa, among others. And thirdly, the reflection of the polluters pay principle, and of course, the fulfillment of the right to equitable and sustainable development for all. Madam President, with regard to the impact of climate change, we in the Gambia, since the 1970s, have experienced a change, particularly in rainfall patterns, that have profoundly affected our environment and livelihoods. Therefore, in response to this situation, significant efforts to adapt to drought and the resulting land degradation have been undertaken over the years, in various sectors and indeed at various levels as well. The major challenge that we continue to face as a country is our inability to provide the much-needed resources to adapt to climate change and address, of course, climate-related disasters, which are surely on the rise. We therefore call on the international community to honor their commitments through, of course, concrete action and support that can easily be accessed, in particular by least developed countries, small island developing states, and Africa, for both adaptation and mitigation purposes. Madam President, climate change scenarios for the Gambia indicate that the climatic variability currently being experienced through, for example, droughts, floods, and storms are most likely to increase in both frequency and intensity. In our coastal areas, for example, sea level rise, rising sea temperatures, and storms will lead to saltwater intrusion, floods, and coastal erosion, which collectively, of course, constitute a significant threat to the very economic activities, such as tourism and fisheries, among others. The destruction of human infrastructure, and of course, the destabilization as well of rich ecosystems from rising sea levels could be very devastating indeed, and would result in serious damage and loss of livelihoods, particularly of coastal vulnerable groups, not only in the Gambia, but I might as well say, indeed, all other low-lying communities of the world. Madam President, with only 1 meter sea level rise, it is projected that about 92 square kilometers of the coastal zone of the Gambia will be inundated, and the whole of the capital city of Banjul would be lost. We therefore consider an ambitious and urgent emission reduction of greenhouse gases by developing countries as a matter of survival and priority. As all previous speakers have said, a sealed Copenhagen deal will no doubt, of course, determine our firm resolve to save humanity and future generations from catastrophes beyond imagination. This demands collective action, no doubt, from all governments and peoples, but more so from those who have contributed disproportionately to the causes and adverse consequences of climate change. Madam President, while finance indeed constitutes a very significant part of any agreement, we must seal the deal, no doubt, by tomorrow. Time is not on our side, as previous speakers have said. The Gambia therefore urges parties to seal an equitable and comprehensive deal that contains ambitious emission reduction targets by all developed country parties for the medium as well as for the long term. The deal must also ensure the provision of predictable resources, including adequate finances for both adaptation and mitigation, as well as the transfer of technology and capacity building, among others. We must all leave Copenhagen, therefore, with a deal that does not sacrifice the livelihoods and survival of the present as well as of future generations. Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before concluding, I want to remind this August gathering about Article 7, Paragraph 6 of the UNFCCC, which states that the United Nations, its specialized agencies, and the International Atomic Energy Agency, as well as any state member thereof or observers thereto, not party to the convention, may be represented at sessions of the Conference of the Parties as observers. In May this year, some of us may remember that Taiwan was invited to the World Health Assembly as an observer, which should be seen, of course, as an acceptable precedent applicable to other international fora, and in this case, of course, the UNFCCC, with climate change affecting, no doubt, all members of the international community and humans everywhere. Taiwan, as a member of the global family, therefore, should be part of all United Nations-related mechanisms for the sake of justice and fairness. Against this backdrop, therefore, the Gambia fully supports the participation of Taiwan at future Conference of Parties as an observer. Madam President, In closing, I would also reiterate what other speakers have said. In this deal, if we seal it, we all float and win. If we don't, we all sink, and of course, we are all losers. I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.